Heyo everybody, Haku here with my sort of re-review, sort of breakdown review of The Walking Dead Season 6 finale, Episode 16, which was Last Day on Earth. I still stick by everything I said in yesterday's video. It was kind of a 25-minute rant over it was talking about the overall episode and how it didn't mean anything because of the cliffhanger, but I'm going to stay away from that topic until that scene comes up, obviously, for this. Because for this, I want to do my normal sort of reviewing, which is where I'm going to break it down scene by scene, explain the scenes and what I thought of them. And I actually got a lot of notes on this one, so it may be a bit of a long video. I do still think everything I said. I think even the parts I absolutely loved, the cliffhanger sort of, in retrospect, hurts them and ruins some of them at least. But there's still a lot of good scenes that I want to bring up and give proper credit to. Because, like, people are saying, like, there's the argument, is it bad writing? Oh, this is such a cheap move and bad writing. But, yes, I do think the cliffhanger was very, very bad writing, and I don't see how it got through. But everything else in this episode leading up to that was very good writing. The cliffhanger just took that very good writing and squandered it, wasted it. But I'll get into why this is true as I break it down scene by scene. So before I get to the breakdown, I do want to talk about the acting. Like, for me, I know a lot of people are going to bring up Game of Thrones, and the acting in that is very good as well. I have watched it. I don't currently keep up with it, I don't think. I don't know how up to date I am, but I did watch it up for a few seasons, and the acting in that is good, but I think the two shows on television that I find personally have the best acting, in my opinion, are American Horror Story, and above that, especially this episode showing it off, The Walking Dead. Now, the acting here was brilliant. Especially, I'm going to point out some specific things. Stephen Ogg, the character he portrayed and how he played it was so creepy, and it was so right. It built that tension, and he was so great at orchestrating that. He was the voice of this episode, the good parts of this episode, not the bad part at the end that ruined it. But his character was just so, I don't know, I felt like I really enjoyed it. I felt drawn in by that character, and I really hope they keep him around and keep that character around because he is so talented. That was so good. Other ones that I want to point out, Michael Cudlitz as Abraham. He always does well. It's kind of hard to portray one of the sort of out there, more outgoing characters. It's kind of hard to portray them without people accusing you of overacting, but I think that he did very, very well, and he always does really well. Also wanting to bring up Lenny James as Morgan. I also think his acting is always good, even if you disagree with the character. And this episode showed off, like, it was still really good. I just like his style. I like the way he acts and the way he portrays Morgan. And it shows he has a lot of range to play both Crazy Morgan, the original Morgan, and this current Morgan that's a bit different than each of those. It shows his range and how he can both be different and stick to the character. I love Sonequa Martin Green in this, and I love her a lot just because her facial expressions, like, I feel like you can always tell what the character's thinking. Like, she is one of the best actors I've ever seen for being able to do facial expressions. Just seeing her in the seasons that she's been on the show has been incredible. And I guess an extension of that this episode was Josh McDermott. Like, Eugene was portrayed so well, and I'm going to go ahead and throw out Andrew Lincoln as Rick. It was amazing to see his change throughout the episode, and especially at the end, his emotion was so raw. And why I'm bringing up those two, and I think Sonequa Martin Green as well as Sasha, is they portrayed so well the panic and the fear of the episode. How they started out thinking they were going to do this, and things got more and more hectic, more and more panicked, and they encapsulated that so well. They did amazing at that. All of the actors did, but those in particular I wanted to bring up. So I'm like 5 minutes in and haven't even gotten to the scene by scene breakdown, but there's still a lot more to go. I do want to be very thorough, and I think you guys deserve me, especially after the ranty review, you deserve for me to be a bit thorough with this episode in this breakdown. Now, starting out and throughout the episode, we got the scenes where I was able to guess it pretty early on. I was able to tell, okay, this is the nighttime scene, there's spotlights, and I was trying to figure out, I was like, maybe it's the person that got hit by the bat and all the spotlights and people talking look blurred to them. And then eventually I was like, oh, it's going to be Daryl and the captured ones, and they're in some kind of truck or trailer or something. And it did turn out later to be a van. So I was able to key into what it was pretty quick, but I still like the way they did it. I'm not very much in agreement with having the first-person scenes at all, though, because while it was cool and neat, I don't think the episode needed it. I say cut out those parts and give us an actual ending to the episode. But beyond that, next was we get Stephen Ogg, his character chasing this guy, the last librarian, as we find out, through the woods, capturing him. And we get this really good exposition, and I really like that, and it showed, what happens to communities that cross the saviors, how they wiped him out, hung the guy as a message, and was using this guy as another message. It was very, very well done, I feel. And another thing, when they were chasing the guy through the woods, and throughout this episode, the whistling was so creepy. It was a great touch, and beyond that, story-wise, it showed something. It showed that the saviors are playing mind games. They're doing this to make them panic, make them afraid, use something to fear. They're making themselves seem big and fearsome and using that to get people to do what they want, which is amazing. And it was amazing how they got that across in the show. And it makes it even more a shame that all this is going to be remembered for is how they robbed us of an ending. They cut it off mid-scene, not even a cliffhanger, but an incomplete scene. It makes me even more upset because there were so many great, amazing parts in this episode. This episode should have been a 10 out of 10. It should have been. They really robbed fans here, and that's a huge shame. Carl locking Enid in the closet, and when he said just survive somehow, that was perfect to me as well. The build-up in this episode was genius. It was brilliant. You can't say it had bad writing because the build-up was genius. Like, I'm trying to defend it and say how genius it was, and I think everyone else would say the same if it wasn't for that last scene getting cut off and robbing us of all of it. Robbing us of what it all meant, what it all led to. So it made it so that all these great, perfect parts led to nothing and were just falling out of the air at the end. So while the ending did ruin it, up until the ending, these scenes were perfect, these building scenes. And again, another thing at the beginning is we have Morgan finding that horse, and we find out that Roman, the savior, is following them. Seeing Sasha, Abraham, and Eugene also piling into the RV, and finding out they are taking Maggie to Hilltop, that was all very good as well. And I absolutely 100% love Rick and Gabriel's conversation, where he leaves the defense of Alexandria to Gabriel, and I love that because Gabriel is such a great character. He's one of my favorites now just because I love when a character goes through a ton of development and ends up a lot different than where they were. And that's why I like Carol and Morgan quite a bit, even though I've had some struggles with liking Morgan. I like them quite a bit because of the changes they've gone through, and I love that with Father Gabriel. I also really like how they threw the Spencer line in there about negotiating, and I think that was kind of a nod, sort of, not really an Easter egg, but just a nod in there for comic fans. I like that, and I absolutely love Rick's like, yeah, tell him to wait for me, I've got a deal for him. That was a really cool line too, and I liked how it built the confidence, and the confidence had been building, and it showed that confidence getting destroyed throughout the episode. Again, one of those things that would have been perfect, but I'm not going to preach about the stupid cliffhanger unfinished scene again. Now, Morgan finds Carol injured at the steps to that library and takes her inside, intent on saving her. Then, after that, we get the roadblock being set up by Stephen Ogg's character and the Saviors with him. And that shows that they planned this entire episode out. They were waiting from the very beginning, right when they were leaving. They knew every single path they were going to take. They did the whistling, they did the different things. It all had meaning because they were to make them seem like they were something to fear. They were to just do this one big stunt leading them around to make it so that they were so scared they would never cross them ever again. I will give not this entire episode as a whole, but the setup and the development throughout this episode, that's gotta be a 10 out of 10. That was so good. That was done so very correctly. It was done so very right, in just amazing depth. Amazing depth and concept with making them afraid. It's just a shame that they had to throw that away, as I've said. Honestly, I feel as though this episode, even with the cliffhanger, even if you didn't change anything else about this episode, it could have worked as a season premiere. Because then it would be like, say we ended this season on the cliffhanger of last episode. We ended this season thinking, oh crap, Carol and Morgan are gone, Maggie's having troubles with the baby, Daryl's been shot. That would have been an adequate season finale, I guess. This is not. It still wouldn't have been good. I still think a lot of people would have said it was unfinished because it was an unfinished episode. But it would have worked better as a premiere, because look at all the building that happened this episode. All of this building could have really set up the hype for season 7, and then we get to focus on the premiere of Rick getting broken down, and that's what's happening for the beginning of season 7. That is what we're building into. And then we have this cliffhanger, and then it makes you say, oh, I need to see episode 2 to see, like, not only who dies, but where they go with this. Doing it like that would be very good, because it's only a week, and you're very excited for that week to see what happens. But doing it as a finale does not work, because over 7 months, you're not going to give a shit. You're going to say, okay, if it's Glenn, I know how I'm going to feel. If it's Maggie, know how I'm going to feel. It's been 7 months. And you're going to have to get back into it. It just sort of, it derails you, and you have to build the momentum back in the coming, like, the first episodes of next season. So that's why it doesn't work as a finale, but it could have potentially worked as a premiere. It could have. But, I don't know how they made this mistake. Working on into the next scenes. One thing I thought throughout this episode, why is Abraham driving? Shouldn't they know by now Abraham driving is not a good idea? Like, that it doesn't usually work out that well. So, yeah, that was just a funny little thing I noticed. I was like, why do they always let him drive? They should know better. Now, after that, we got a really good conversation with Carl and Aaron that I really liked, where Aaron says, I owe Maggie. But Carl owes the Saviors. He says he owes the Saviors. Carl's not even in it for protecting Maggie. Carl is there to get revenge. And I think that's super interesting. That was kind of something that I feel like was a little overlooked. But, and of course, everything in this, all these really great scenes they're overlooked and overshadowed because of the cliffhanger. But taking the look at that, it is really important and really cool. So flashing back to Carol and Morgan for a little bit, Carol's attitude in this all makes no sense to me. I mean, like, I don't know. It's just like, she doesn't want to be around them because she'll have to kill for them, but she doesn't want to kill because she cares about them. But if she cares about them, then why is she just leaving them to die? Or, I don't know, there's just a lot of different stuff with Carol's whole attitude and leaving that doesn't make sense. What does she think is better out there? She's going to have to do the same thing out there. She did have to do the same thing out there. She just killed people as soon as she left. So her entire argument and like her feelings here are making no sense. I think it was really interesting when they ran into the next group of saviors and Abraham was saying that, you know, he was ready to have a kid. That makes me really worry for Abraham, but it makes me really worry for Abraham, and it makes me really worry for Sasha, two characters I really enjoy, but I'm still not convinced either of them are going to die. I still think it'll likely be Glenn or Daryl, probably Glenn. It could even be somebody that not as many people care about, like Aaron or Rosita. I would be upset with that. But it scares me, since they're holding it off till the premiere, that it will be somebody minor. So next we go back and Morgan is cutting down the walker of the hanged guy, and he notices that Carol's gone, gets on his horse, goes after her. Cut back again to them finding the Walker Chain Gang blockade. That was really cool. I absolutely loved how you could how they had Michonne and Daryl's stuff on the walkers. That was really awesome. And I like how they noticed once they got through there that it was a trap, with Rick saying they're leading us this way. And they're panicked because they don't have any other option but to go right where they're leading them. But also, I really like when Sasha shot those like 3 or 4 walkers. Something about it was just like weirdly satisfying. I don't know why. Just watching that, I was like, oh, that was really cool. I just thought it was a really cool moment personally. So of course then they run into another block, and this one has at least 35 saviors that can be seen. So that's freaking amazing to show they had that many characters. And it was so cool. And then Maggie says she believes in Rick, and that really hit me too. I was like, oh, she believes in Rick Grimes. Comic fans would kind of get that, but I really liked it. Thought it was really cool. So Morgan then finds the rosaries by this walker, and it did look like a freshly killed walker to me. It looked really fresh. It didn't look to me like some people are saying a guy with his head bashed in, but I could always be wrong, especially since there's the symbols there, and they kind of make sure you can see the symbols on screen. So, and it was the same sort of X they marked at other places. So I don't know, it could potentially be somebody that got their head beat in. It just looked like a walker to me though. So I could always be wrong on that. I personally think it looked like just a normal walker. So Roman shoots Carol, and I didn't like this scene very much just because it didn't feel dangerous to me. I don't know. Maybe it was the pacing of it. Maybe it was because Roman wasn't an important character that we'd seen before. I didn't feel the danger. Even when Carol was shot, I was like, hey, just shot her in the arm. She'll survive. I didn't feel the danger. I did absolutely love Morgan killing the guy. But again, even that, I didn't feel the emotion in it. I really didn't. I liked it, though. I really liked it, even though I didn't feel the emotion in it. And I absolutely loved the knights from the kingdom showing up. Oh, man, it was really awesome. I love that we're changing up the comic story in this way by having them meet these guys, and they're going to take Carol for help. I called Carol X Ezekiel back a while back, prediction, but I don't know. I just thought it was really a good thing that they did this season with Carol and Morgan. I just don't think that the ending for it was as emotional as it could have been. So overall, the Morgan and Carol stuff through this season, I'd give like a 7 or 8 out of 10. It was a pretty good subplot they had going through the entire season. Now, next up is the burning log blockade and the guy getting hanged. And that was friggin' awesome. Like, that was so creepy and scary, and it just added so much to the buildup of this episode. I'm sad to say that the buildup went nowhere, but man, was it good. It was good buildup. It was good preparation for nothing. Now, the high point of the episode for me was the Eugene scene. I think a lot of people will disagree with that, but I think it was really emotional for me. I really felt it as a good scene for his character. I loved the acting. Man, like, he did so good this episode. Eugene's actor, Josh McDermott, he did so good this episode, but especially this scene was done very, very well. It's the high point for me. Now, then we're running through the woods with Maggie on the stretcher, and then we hear the whistling. They freak out. Again, so creepy and so great. Shows the mind games being played, and they light them up and have the ambush. And we see that they captured Eugene, and again, if there was an ending to this episode, that would have been totally forgivable, because it would have went somewhere. It would have been like they tried to escape and win, but their efforts were futile. But not having an ending to the episode made it so that it was just sort of a dead plot point. It was like, okay, the whole Eugene scene that we thought was going to be really good meant nothing in hindsight. So, yeah, they ruined their previous scenes, and it bothers me. Now, then Dwight comes and kneels down the people that were in the van, Rosita, Daryl, Glenn, and Michonne, and we get Negan. Now, Negan's portrayal, there's a lot I like and a lot I dislike. I absolutely love that it's Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and I love that his acting was very good. I think he was really off what the character is and should be, because it makes no sense that somebody like just chill and relaxed and low-key like him would have the power to keep all these people in line. So he needs to have, maybe not like exactly like the comic, but he needs to have some of that, the feeling of power, and not just like the slow creepiness, but the feeling of power and hopelessness. And this guy is just, he's a performer performing to himself. He is in his own little world where he just like blurts out random shit. I really loved that his lines were taken like almost word for word from the comics. It's just that the delivery of the lines was really sort of lackluster. And I don't think that's something that's permanently bad. They can always just fix that by having him be better be more Negan-like next season. But as for this portrayal, it was good and it was bad. It was good in some ways, bad in others. And I think the thing I didn't like it the most, and the thing that I see took a lot of people out of it, a lot of people didn't like the beard. To me, the beard just didn't make sense. It's not that I didn't really like it, because I wouldn't mind it. It's just that it didn't really make sense to me. Like, the thing is, you get other than being bulky, Jeffrey Dean Morgan looks very much like Negan. You have him with the slick back hair and the jacket too, and you have a guy that looks like him in the face quite a bit, and you don't have him shaved to look more like him. Like, you just say, okay, keep the beard. And especially when he had the line where he's like, I have to shave this later. It shows that if you're going to shave him later, why not have done it for this episode? I get maybe he needed a beard for other roles, but that just, it's something that out of the show's in canon-ness takes away from the show. If that's what they're doing, it does take away from the show, and it's just, it's annoying how they played that off, really. Lampshading your problems doesn't make them not problems anymore. Now, the build-up here with Negan's speech, some people said it was way too long and boring. I thought it was really good. I thought it really ramped up the emotion. And I think it would have been one of the most talked about performances ever if it wasn't tainted by... That's what pisses me off. Like, I wasn't angry. I was just sort of disappointed. But when I think back, it does make me a little angry that this would have been one of the most talked about, one of the best episodes ever on TV. This would have been one of the biggest performances on TV, but it was all overshadowed. It was ruined looking back in hindsight at the older stuff. It was all just, it was taken down a peg because of the bad ending. And I say bad ending like it was an ending, but it wasn't even an ending. They just cut off mid-scene. It wasn't a cliffhanger ending. A cliffhanger ending is where things come together and it gives you more questions for the next season, like they did with seasons 4 and 5. This wasn't that. They told us exactly what happened. By showing the scene at the end, they told us somebody got beaten to death with a baseball bat. And they just didn't show it to us. They pretty much just spoiled their own show. It's like, I would understand if it would have been much better. Negan comes out, says, "Hi, I'm Negan." We end there. I would have been still a little bit disappointed, but it would have at least been a cliffhanger ending. This episode could have been about Rick losing all that morale, and then next would be about, we'd be thinking what's going to happen to them, what are they going to do, and show-only watchers would be thinking, okay, are they all going to survive, are they all going to die, how are they going to get out of there, is somebody going to save them? It would bring up things, but now we know exactly what's going to happen, we just didn't get to see it. So it's pretty much like if you had a group of characters on Game of Thrones and then the screen cut to black at the end of the season finale and said in the, like, they get the friggin' director up there and he's like, one of these characters is going to die first thing next season. And they just told you that. So they ruined that one character is going to be dying. And maybe they say one of these characters will be shot by an arrow at the first scene of next season. So they pretty much just spoil how this is going to go. And that's what they did. They spoiled somebody's getting beaten to death with a baseball bat. And they didn't show it to us. So in every way I can think of, even though the rest of the episode was very good writing, there is no justifying how bad that writing was. Also, personally, just my personal opinion, I've seen a couple other people say it as well, but when I watched it, I thought the blood running down the screen and the sound effects were a bit cheesy and cartoonish, and it took me out of it a little more than the fact that it was a cliffhanger, but yeah, it was just, the ending to this episode was a load of really shit. Like, it wasn't good in any way I can justify. The rest of the episode was amazing. Up until that point, I would have given it a 10 out of 10. If it had an ending, if it would have, if it had an ending, even if it wasn't the ending we were hoping for, even if it ended at, "Hi, I'm Negan," then I would have probably given the episode a 10 out of 10. But the fact that it didn't have an ending and it just sort of spoiled the first scene of next episode, next season, then I don't know, it's pretty bad in every way. So in the end, I'm sticking by my 2 out of 10. The acting was great. The acting was like the best on television, and the build-up was amazing too. It was so genius, but it all ended up not meaning anything because it's overshadowed by not having an ending whatsoever, just cutting off mid-scene. And I don't want to say it's a cop-out or a gimmick, like I said in the rant. That's not the sort of person I want to be about this, but thinking back on it and seeing everybody else talk, I really can't think of any good writing reason that they would have done this. So the only way I can think of is that it is a cop-out or a gimmick. They're either killing somebody unimportant or they just want people to tune in. They're like, we're going to give you half of a scene, tune in next time to see the rest of the scene. So it's pretty shady and bad. It's the worst thing The Walking Dead has done, and I think it shows by critically and by fans. So far, this is the second lowest rated episode that's ever aired, and I agree with that second lowest rating. Hell, I would even perhaps put it below the stupid little... Man, I feel so bad talking like this. I'd even possibly put it below the Daryl and Beth episode, just because, I don't know, it's just the ending made everything else not worth it. Like, marathoning it and seeing it right before Season 7's premiere, I'm sure it'll be great, but as an episode, as a self-contained episode, terrible. Nothing, like it didn't have an ending. It was incomplete work, like I said before. As a season finale, terrible, doesn't work at all. It could have maybe worked as a premiere, not at all as a finale. So, yeah, I think those are my thoughts just overall. Sorry, this was a super long one, but I wanted to be very, very in-depth with everything. So, right before I end, going to say 2 out of 10, but it could have been 10 out of 10 if not for the cheap stunt of not finishing your episode, AMC. Sorry, but it's the way it is. Like if you did like the video, and we can always disagree, so comment down there, tell me what you thought of everything and what you thought of my thoughts. We can definitely 100% disagree and still love the show. I still love the show, I just disagree with the choice they made. What else? Subscribe for more The Walking Dead, Tower of God, One Piece, and a bunch more, because I do a bunch more stuff. Thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for watching. Follow on Twitter for updates. I tweet out when I post a new video or if anything's pushed back. Over the break, I will be covering Fear the Walking Dead, and I'll do news updates for The Walking Dead if we get any confirmed news updates for casting or anything. So, yeah, I'll see you all next time.